Good morning. It is a real pleasure to have all of you joining us this morning and also this afternoon to those of you who are on the East Coast in both U.S. and Canada. And I want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining our first product training session with Stephen. Who am I? I am Claire Bancino, Chief Marketing Officer, and I'm only here today to welcome you. And for those of you who are kind of new to the family of Univera and may not be as familiar with our beloved Stephen Chernisky as the rest of us are, I want to take a minute and just tell you a little bit about his background so you know who you'll be seeing today. Stephen is a nutritional biochemist and health educator. He is the best-selling author of several books on aging and health, including The Metabolic Plan, Caffeine Blues, and the DHEA Breakthrough. Collectively, those three books have sold more than 1 million copies. Stephen consulted for members of the U.S. Olympic team. He served on the faculty of the American College of Sports Medicine, taught clinical nutrition at the UCLA Department of Continuing Education in Health Science, and he has directed the nation's first federally licensed clinical laboratory specializing in nutrition and immunology. He's appeared in numerous magazines, including Time, U.S. News, World Report, Oprah, and Self. Stephen holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and biology from the University of New York in Albany and a Master of Science degree from Columbia Pacific University. He's also a member of the New York Academy of Sciences and the American Medical Writers Association. All of that to say, the man who you will shortly meet is a genius, very talented, extremely knowledgeable, and an expert in his field. And he is a gentleman that I have had the pleasure of working with for the last 18 months. I am proud to call him my peer and my friend. He is the creative brains behind our science and our product. So please enjoy your session with Stephen Chernisky. Stephen, join us.
Claire. Thank you, Claire. Thank you for that introduction, and thanks everyone for being with us on this first inaugural product training session. What we're going to talk about today is really important, and it's important because it has to do with reality. We all are aware, right, of the fitness revolution that started back about 20 years ago when all these companies came out with all this fitness equipment and there was health clubs were sprouting up like mushrooms after a spring rain. And there was everybody who was talking about fitness and vitality, and every infomercial on late night television was advertising yet another abdominizer brought to you by Amco, and all the different things that were happening. So we were all aware of this fitness revolution, right? Well, guess what? It didn't happen. There was no fitness revolution. There was a lot of sales of fitness products, of exercise equipment. There was a whole lot of people that spent a whole lot of money going and buying a membership to gyms and health clubs all over North America. And then they put down their money and then they went a few times and then they never went back. They bought the equipment and they instead of feeling invigorated and enthusiastic and vitality from that equipment, they felt like they've been hit by a bus and they put it on their front lawn. And as we all know, exercise equipment is the #1 item on yard sales nationwide every single weekend. What I'm saying is that their fitness revolution never happened. What happened was the fit people got fitter, and the unfit people tried and failed, and ultimately gave up. Now, Metabolic Makeover solves the problem. See, the problem wasn't that all those people were lazy. The problem wasn't that all those people had no willpower. It wasn't that all those people were bad people. It's that they were not metabolically fit. So to think that an unfit person could just go to a health club, sign up for an aerobics class, and have a good experience, that's madness. It can't happen. The person's going to go, and let's say they struggle through the class. When they're in the locker room and they're looking around at the fit people who are feeling invigorated and they feel like they've been hit by a bus, how do you think that made them feel? How do you think it made them feel when they woke up the next morning and every muscle, tendon, ligament, and joint in their body hurt? You think that was something they looked forward to doing the following day? You see, so there was a huge gap. What the Metabolic Makeover does is it closes the gap. It makes fitness possible for everyone. And why is that important? Well, real clearly, we all know what we want. And what you want is peak health. Now, you can define that any way you want. But I think when you get right down to it, peak health means you've got an enormous amount of energy. You have a high level of wellness. And it's not just about the wellness, which is like the lack of a disease. You've got a feeling of vitality. So we all want peak health. What you've got to understand is that to get to that top of the mountain, you've got to have something called physical fitness. Now, in other words, you can't have peak health without physical fitness. What was missing, and the reason why the fitness revolution was a bust, was because you can't have physical fitness without something called metabolic fitness. And that's what we have brought to the marketplace. That's what we've brought in terms of our science, and that's what we've brought in terms of our product development and our sales and marketing. Why? Because this is something everybody wants. Everybody wants peak health. They just don't know how to get there. They've tried and tried and tried to be physically fit and tried and failed because they didn't have metabolic fitness. It's another way to portray that if you want. Because in our brochure, which we've done, a very, very beautiful brochure regarding the Metabolic Makeover, in our brochure, what we've done is we've put it in a different way. What we've done there is we've said, yeah, everybody wants, everybody wants this thing called peak health. Peak health resides at the intersection of two forces. One is physical fitness, and the other is metabolic fitness. Where they overlap, you get peak health. So either way, you want to think about it. Whether you like word pictures that start with mountains or whether you like word pictures that start with circles and where they overlap, it doesn't matter. The point is that we finally now have the solution to the problem that has really been dogging us for well over half a century. In that once we became sedentary, it was real fast that we lost fitness. And when you lose fitness, and I'm talking about metabolic fitness as well as physical fitness, that's when all of the problems start to arise. The problems normally associated with aging. How many times have people said to you, and maybe you even said it to yourself, I'm just too old for that. You went to play tennis with your son or your daughter, and you didn't do so well, or you went dancing with your spouse, and you came home and you collapsed on the couch. What did you say to yourself? Probably you said, I'm too old for this. What you should have said was, I need a metabolic makeover. So let's talk about that. The reason why I'm so excited about it is because my training and my expertise was primarily in sports nutrition. So I was dealing with elite athletes on a regular basis, world-class athletes, record holders in track and field, mountaineering, martial arts. And these elite athletes taught me something really important about energy. What I want you to do is I want you to think for a second about what it would feel like to have about 40 times as much energy as you currently do. What would that feel like in your body? Imagine how you would think. You would probably think different thoughts. And the 40 times number, I'm going to kind of back that up with a little bit of science here in a second. But I think that's even conservative. Because you've got to say, well, where does energy come from? Number one, energy comes from the cells of your body that are making energy out of the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe. And so the efficiency by which that happens, and I'm not going to get into a complex biochemistry here, but I want to talk about something in your cells, and that something, let's make a cell here. Can be any shape, right? Here's the nucleus of the cell, all right? In that nucleus, you've got DNA, right? Now, the DNA is basically instructing the cell on what to do, what to make, what proteins to import and export from that cell to make the cell function in the way that cell is supposed to function. But there are little organelles in the cell. Now, these little organelles are called mitochondria, and they are the energy factories of that cell. In other words, they are the ones that are creating the ATP that the cell runs on. And that ATP can be exported to other tissues. That ATP is basically, listen to me, the currency of life. Now, when you look at an unfit person and you do a biopsy and you look at a muscle cell, it's not unusual to find a muscle cell with maybe 5 or 6 mitochondria. When you do the same thing, you take a needle and you take a biopsy of a muscle and you look at it under a microscope, in an athlete, you might find 50. You might find 100 mitochondria. In other words, they are packed. The cells are packed and packed and packed and packed, not only with mitochondrial density, as it's called, but these mitochondria are bigger and more efficient. Now, you might be saying, well, that's terrible. I probably have like 5 or 6 mitochondria in my muscle cells, and my neighbor who's an elite athlete has hundreds. That's not fair. Well, he or she earned that, number one. And number two, they had probably a genetic advantage from their athletic parents too. But now let's talk about what you can do. Because here's what we know. If you were to become metabolically fit, and that led to you becoming physically fit. That is, increasing your muscle strength, increasing your muscle mass, and what this is called, listen to me, this is called muscle quality. If you were to improve these things, you could have just as many mitochondria as your athletic neighbor. This is something which is very, very responsive to your behaviors. So now let's talk about your behaviors, because a lot of people would look at this and go, well, I want to have lots of those mitochondria. I want to have lots of those because I want to create lots of energy, right? Well, that's true. Now let's talk about the number of muscle cells, because muscle makes energy. We used to think that, well, muscle was just using energy. All those people at the gyms were there because they had lots of energy and they went to the gym to use that energy, right? Yeah, that's true to a certain extent. But what I want you to understand is it's also the opposite. Those people are at the gym because exercise creates energy at all these little mitochondria. Exercise creates energy. So remember when I said that it's possible for an athlete or a very fit person to be producing about 40 times as much energy. Well, think about this. If you look at mitochondrial density, that's only one factor. Now let's think about glycogen. Oh, no, another term you got to remember. Well, you don't have to remember. There's no quiz. But I want to talk about glycogen because muscles store energy as glycogen. Glycogen is a form of energy that's very easy. So when you have a reserve of energy in your muscles, and when you are running low on energy, like between meals or during exercise, your body is easily going to tap into glycogen to keep your energy level high. Now listen to this. A fit person can have 40 times the glycogen storage compared to an unfit person. Now, it gets even better. If a fit person can store 40 times the amount of glycogen in their muscles, and you have to multiply that times another factor, which is the number of muscle cells that they have, because a person who is highly muscular could have hundreds, listen to me, hundreds of billions of muscle cells more than a person who is unfit. So I think I've drawn the picture for you that what you want is muscle. Now the question is, how do you get there? If you've tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed, then this ought to be good news for you, because you now can have a metabolic makeover that will enable you to exercise, feel good, not experience a great deal of stiffness and soreness afterwards, and at the same time, you'll be on your way to peak health, because you're going to get there by becoming metabolically fit. You're going to use those assets, those biochemical assets and advantages, to become physically fit, and then you will experience this thing called peak health. Now, the reason why the metabolic makeover is becoming so successful for Univera is because, number one, it's the best application of our science, number one. Number two, it's producing benefits that people can see, feel, and measure. Number three, it's fun to talk about, right? So it's becoming a recruiting tool, because in network marketing, right, you need to have something to talk about, and it can't just be yada, 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 information, 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 because we're all inundated with information. What we want is information that is appropriate for our needs, and that's inspiring, or at least is an aha, and that we can use that information to create a change in our life. Otherwise, it's just more and more and more, I call it lip flapping. So the nice thing is, when people get benefits from the metabolic makeover, they find that it is easy to talk about, because somebody comes up to them and says, wow, you look great. What's going on? And you say, well, I'm on the metabolic makeover. Have you heard of it? Now, if they say no, and they probably will say no, you got a bunch of choices. You could either give them this brochure. Here, take a look at this. This is what I'm doing. My name and contact information is on the back, and we can talk about it. Or you can send them to metabolicpower.com. Now, you just heard Claire Bancino introduce me on this show. Claire and her team have done a spectacular job to produce a website called metabolicpower.com. You go to metabolicpower.com, you're going to learn a lot of this information, right, regarding peak health. You're also going to be able to take an assessment, and that assessment will measure your metabolic fitness, and you'll get a metabolic fitness score from that assessment. That score is really important. Number one, it's important because it gives you a baseline from which to evaluate and measure your progress. And now, what is the progress from? The progress is by taking the metabolic makeover products, you will produce benefits that you can see, feel, and measure. And as you gain more energy, because you become more efficient, you build mitochondrial density. As you gain the exercise tolerance so that you actually feel invigorated, and as you reduce the stiffness and soreness that accompanies exercise in the unfit state, all of these factors combine to make you a walking billboard. Everyone's going to want to know what you're doing. Chances are you'll lose some weight. Chances are you'll have more energy. Chances are you'll be more enthusiastic, and people will be attracted to that, and they'll want to know what you do. And you'll say it with me, I'm on the metabolic makeover. Have you heard of it? Now, you've got tools. You've got the brochure that I mentioned. You've got metabolicpower.com. You've got the assessment on metabolicpower.com that gives you a place to start. Here's where I am right now. Once you get your score, then you can take the test every couple of weeks if you want. And so as you improve your fitness, and as you build mitochondrial density, as you build exercise tolerance, as you experience vitality, right, then you'll be able to follow that and see your progress, because the website will keep track of your score and report it each time that you take your test if you are an associate or a customer. So that gives us a way for not only recruiting, because it's a beautiful conversation, but number two, it gives us a way for retention, because as people participate in this program, they want to stay on the products, because they see benefits that they can feel, they see benefits that they can see in the mirror, they're getting compliments from their friends, and they can measure those benefits, not only on the assessment on metabolicpower.com, they can ultimately get benefits that they can measure when they go to their doctor for their annual physical. So all of these things combine to produce a movement within Univera, which is really catching fire. And I'm delighted to see this. I'm delighted to go on my Facebook and see people posting their metabolic fitness score. I'm delighted that they can go to metabolicpower.com and with one click, it'll go to Facebook and it'll give a little message saying, I just took my metabolic fitness assessment and got my score. What's yours? You see, so Claire has worked in all these beautiful cross-referenced tools to pull all this together in a way that makes it seamless and easy and fun. Now, let's get down to talking about the products. First product, of course, is Level G. Now, Level G was important because it came as the culmination of 2.5 years of research here at Univera and Unigen. That research was focusing on looking at the metabolic defect that occurs from a high-fat, high-sugar diet. We basically gave the standard American diet to a lot of mice, and we looked at what happened in terms of their body's selection of fuels. Because as all that glucose went into the mouse's metabolism, basically the mouse genome said, look at all that sugar, we never have to burn fat again. So there was an alteration at the DNA level, at the level where these metabolic decisions are made. There was a change at the DNA level in gene expression that favored burning sugar and turned down the pathways that burn fat. Now, we weren't the first ones to look at that, but we were the first research group to cull through thousands and thousands of medicinal plants to find those plants that could improve that entire condition. So Level G was the culmination of that research. And so now, what do we have? We have Level G that allows you to improve all those metabolic pathways, that helps you maintain normal glucose levels and provides more energy. The thing that we're hearing, of course, is that this provides a lot more benefits than just helping to maintain normal glucose. We're hearing that people have more control over their diet. They can walk into the kitchen and the cookies and the breakfast cereal and the bread doesn't talk to them anymore, you see. So they have more control and they're finding that life just becomes better. The second component of the metabolic makeover, of course, is rhythmatics. If you think of Level G as creating a metabolic advantage, I want you to now think of rhythmatics, which is our cardio circulation product, is delivering those metabolic advantages to hundreds of trillions of cells throughout the body. That's why that combination is so powerful. At the same time, I want you to think of one of the biggest obstacles that anyone has in regards to becoming active and being more active. It's the stiffness and soreness that is associated with that kind of activity. So we had to put Regenifree in that mix, and so those became the top 3 products for the metabolic makeover. So you've got Level G, Rhythmatics, and Regenifree. Regenifree, obviously, the combination of protectin and curcumin that does such a fabulous job addressing those damaging forces of inflammation and oxidative stress. Now, you look at that and you say, well, how could it get any better? Well, it could, because right now we're looking at not only Extra, and you all know the energy benefits of Extra, and of course, I could talk for the next hour about the energy benefits of Extra, but for those of you who are new, it's not a whopping dose of caffeine, because caffeine really doesn't give you energy. It gives you metabolic stress that temporarily increases your mental clarity. So a cup of coffee in the morning is fine. But don't make the mistake of thinking that stringing your day along with caffeine hit after caffeine hit is going to be a sensible way to live. A lot of people are doing that because they are not able to burn fat. When they improve their ability to burn fat, lo and behold, they don't need all that caffeine. So Extra isn't just a whoop upside the head or a slap to your adrenals with a bunch of caffeine. Extra provides true bioenergetic ingredients that improve energy production at the cell level. Now, again, that's like my father used to say, it ain't bragging if you can prove it. And the data regarding those bioenergetic ingredients has been published in peer-reviewed biomedical journals. So we're talking about something that is very real and that you can see and feel and measure. So you get the energy benefits from Extra. What else do we need? We need something to synergize all of that. We need, if you consider these products as kind of like the players in a beautiful quartet, we need a leader We need something to synergize it, and that, of course, is aloe. Aloe does a lot more than just synergize the other ingredients. As you know, aloe helps to soothe and heal the GI tract. It also is very valuable for supporting immunity, and at the same time, it helps to move nutrients from the GI tract into the bloodstream. So it enhances the bioavailability of nutrients, and so that synergizes everything into the package called the Metabolic Makeover pack. Now, the nice thing about that is that it works. The nice thing about it is that you've got a way to look at it, you've got a way to talk about it, you've got a way to measure it, so that follow-up is really a whole lot easier. See, in relationship marketing, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Follow-up is everything. I mean, most people can have a conversation. Most people can talk about the products and their experience on the products. But success in network marketing comes from follow-up. And this is the follow-up program. This is what you can go back to, and you can check in with your friends and your customers and your associates. You can check in with them and find out how they're doing and celebrate their success with them as they improve not only their metabolic fitness score, but as they improve their level of vitality, their strength, their stamina, their endurance, and their outlook on life. Because remember, it's all about energy. I'll say that one more time. And I think you already know this, but maybe you haven't thought about it this way. It really is all about energy. How you feel, how you think, and the outcome of your behaviors is all about energy. At some point, you're going to understand really deeply that all your hopes and dreams depend upon your health and your energy to accomplish those things. So I want to, again, emphasize how important Metabolic Makeover is, not only for everyone in Univera, but for all the people that you'll meet and talk to. At the same time, I think we can go to some Q&A, because I've got some questions that have come in the last couple of days regarding this whole concept. A lot of people want to know, can I take more than the amount that's listed on the label? And so I would say yes, but you play this by ear. Sometimes people find that level G, if they're going to have a big meal, they might want to take 2 instead of 1 before the meal. Some people like to take more than 2 rhythmatics, because if you look on the label, it says 2 to 4, and so you might want to take more than 2 rhythmatics, and that's perfectly fine. I don't think anyone needs more than 4. Regenifree, of course, it really depends on this, like I said, the stiffness and the soreness that people tend to feel in the beginning stages of any kind of an exercise program. So in the beginning, you might want to take a little more Regenifree. And again, that's perfectly fine. There's no problem associated with that. Another question that is common, that is coming in to my Facebook and also on the website, which is better, cardio or strength training? Wonderful question, because obviously the answer is both. You need both. You need to be able to stress the muscles. That's called strength or resistance training. You need to be able to do that. And you also need to help this muscle, which is in the middle of your chest, working really hard for you. You need to be able to do cardio training as well. So whether you want to do it on a treadmill, a stair step, whether you want to do it by running outside, whatever cardio you want to do, that is just as important as the strength training. A lot of times, though, especially women, I've noticed, tend to shy away from the strength training. They're afraid that they're going to bulk up and they'll lose their feminine allure. I don't know. But trust me, those bodybuilders that you see on the internet, you're not going to look like that just by lifting some weights. And listen, 65% of your muscles are above your waist, right? So I need you to know how important it is to be working your chest, your back, your shoulders, and your arms, because those muscles are going to contribute significantly to your energy. And at the same time, they're going to be involved very, very much, not only in your metabolic fitness, but your physical fitness and ultimately your peak health. What should my resting heart rate be? One of the questions on the metabolic assessment is, we want to know what's your resting heart rate. And sometimes people say, well, why is that important and what should it be? There's really no hard and fast number that I can say, oh, you really want it to be this. I can say that your resting heart rate should be under 70 beats per minute. If you look at an elite athlete, It is not unusual. When I was working with elite athletes, it's not unusual to have them have a resting heart rate in the high 40s or low 50s. Can you imagine? Now, you might want to do the math sometime. Take out your calculator and do the math. If an athlete's heart is beating 50 times per minute, and an unfit person, it's not unusual at all for an unfit person to have a heart rate of 75. Multiply that difference times the number of minutes in a day times the number of days in a year, and you'll find that that athlete's heart is beating millions of times fewer beats compared to the unfit person. I'll do a little demo for you. Here's an athlete. Here's an unfit person. See the difference? I mean, it's remarkably important that you maintain the fitness and the strength of that heart muscle. A strong heart needs to beat millions of fewer beats in a year compared to an unfit heart that has to pump the same amount of blood to the same number of cells, but because it is unfit, it can't get the job done. So I want you to understand how important cardio is. Resting heart rate, aim for, well, heck, aim for 60, which is 1 beat every second. That's certainly doable. At the same time, people want to know, what should my blood pressure be? That's an interesting discussion, and I don't want to play doctor here, but there's something in the medical literature that's been coming up for the last couple of years, which is that we all were taught that what? The ideal blood pressure was 120/80. No one's saying that anymore. The ideal blood pressure right now is as low as you can get it without fainting. Now, you can talk about this with your doctor, and I encourage you to do that. But if you're aiming for 120/80, I think it might be that you can do better than that. And again, I'm not giving out medical advice here. I'm just reporting what's in the medical literature, which is that 120/80 is not the ideal. It is only okay. Some people want to know, what's your blood pressure? My blood pressure on a bad day is 90/60. What is the purpose and the value of holding your breath? Why do we ask on the fitness assessment, why do we ask you to take out your stopwatch or your smartphone that has a stopwatch on it? And why are we asking you to hold your breath as long as you can and tell us how long that is? That's because holding your breath is a very inexpensive, very easy and fun way to measure your O2-CO2 exchange. If you can't hold your breath for at least 60 seconds, that's telling us that there is a significant amount of carbon dioxide in your body that you're not able to get rid of, and therefore you can't even hold your breath for 60 seconds. So what we want to do is use that as a benchmark. Again, look at what it is today, and then you'll find as you improve your fitness, what do you know? Your respiratory fitness is also going to improve, sometimes dramatically. So as you do that, and you take the next test, and you go from 50 seconds to 60 to a minute and a half. Now, sometimes people say, well, what's the maximum? You really want to know? The maximum for a free diver, somebody that's holding their breath and exerting themselves at the same time? 6 minutes. Don't try that. We don't want you to be bug-eyed. Remember, the test is going to be taking a few deep breaths and holding the final breath and not getting bug-eyed, simply relaxing and watching the seconds tick by. But again, if you can't hold your breath for at least 60 seconds, you got some work to do. And I want you to aim for even higher, because that's a reflection of your respiratory fitness, which is part of this whole wonderful adventure called the Metabolic Makeover. Thanks for listening.